Have you ever wondered why the Israel-Palestine conflict, a dispute that has spanned over a century, remains unresolved to this day? It's a question that has puzzled many, and the answer lies in a complex web of historical, political, and cultural factors. Let's trace the roots of this conflict back to the late 19th and early 20th centuries. This period was marked by a surge of nationalist movements around the world, and the historical region of Palestine was no exception. Both Jewish and Arab communities, driven by their own national aspirations, laid claim to this land. For the Jewish community, this claim was rooted in their historical connection to the land, a place they considered their ancient homeland. The Zionist movement, which emerged in Europe, sought to establish a Jewish nation-state in response to widespread anti-Semitism. The Arab community, on the other hand, had been the majority population in Palestine for centuries. They too had national aspirations and saw Palestine as their rightful homeland. They resisted the Zionist project, viewing it as a colonial endeavor. In the midst of these competing claims, the Balfour Declaration of 1917 added fuel to the fire. Issued by the British government, it expressed support for the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. This was seen by the Arabs as a betrayal, and by the Jews as a validation of their national aspirations. Following the Balfour Declaration, Britain was granted the Mandate of Palestine by the League of Nations in 1922. This was a period of increased Jewish immigration and land purchase, leading to heightened tensions between the Jewish and Arab communities. The turning point came after the horrors of the Holocaust, when global sympathy for the Jewish people led to increased international support for the establishment of a Jewish state. In 1947, the United Nations proposed a partition plan dividing Palestine into separate Jewish and Arab states. Despite Arab rejection of the plan, the Jewish leadership accepted it. And so, in 1948, the State of Israel was born, but this marked only the beginning of a long and contentious struggle. The establishment of Israel sparked a war with surrounding Arab states, leading to a refugee crisis that still reverberates to this day. This was the start of a series of conflicts and peace processes, shaping the volatile landscape of the Israel-Palestine dispute as we know it today. The creation of Israel in 1948 sparked a series of wars, each leaving a lasting impact on the region. Our journey begins with the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, known to the Israelis as the War of Independence and to Palestinians as the Nakba, or catastrophe. This conflict was triggered by the Declaration of the State of Israel, and it set the tone for the decades of strife to follow. The war ended with Israel expanding its territory beyond the partition lines and left hundreds of thousands of Palestinians displaced, giving birth to the Palestinian refugee crisis. The Suez Crisis of 1956 marked a significant turning point. It was a failed gambit by France, Britain, and Israel to regain control of the Suez Canal from Egypt. While it did not result in territorial shifts, it significantly altered international relations, signifying the decline of European colonial powers and the rise of U.S. and Soviet influence in the region. In 1967, the Six-Day War erupted, a conflict of remarkable brevity but enduring consequences. Israel's victory led to significant territorial gains, including the West Bank, Gaza Strip, East Jerusalem, the Golan Heights, and Sinai Peninsula. This war also marked the beginning of Israeli occupation in Palestinian territories, a situation that persists to this day. The Yom Kippur War of 1973 saw Egypt and Syria launching a surprise attack on Israel on the holiest day in the Jewish calendar. The conflict ended in a military stalemate but marked a psychological victory for the Arab states and boosted Palestinian national aspirations. These wars were not merely battles over land. They were struggles over identity, self-determination, and survival. They gave rise to Palestinian nationalism, a force that would come to shape the politics of the region in profound ways. The displacement of people, the shift in regional power dynamics, and the fluctuating borders all added layers of complexity to an already intricate issue. Each war, each clash, only deepened the divide, further complicating the path to peace. The late 20th century saw a new phase in the conflict, the Intifadas and subsequent peace processes. The Intifada, from the Arabic term meaning shaking off, refers to two major uprisings by Palestinians against Israeli occupation. The First Intifada, erupted in the late 1980s, was a largely civilian-led uprising. It was marked by civil disobedience, strikes, boycotts, and protests, but also saw instances of violence. In response to this unrest, the Oslo Accords were brokered in the early 90s, aiming to establish a framework for peace. These accords led to the creation of the Palestinian Authority and outlined a plan for mutual recognition and self-governance. However, the Oslo Accords were met with controversy on both sides and ultimately failed to resolve the core issues of the conflict. The Second Intifada, which began in the year 2000, was far more violent. It was marked by suicide bombings, rocket attacks, and military operations, leading to a high death toll on both sides. This period of violence severely damaged the trust between Israelis and Palestinians, making peace efforts even more challenging. The Camp David Summit in 2000 was another attempt at peace, mediated by then U.S. President Bill Clinton. Despite extensive negotiations, the summit ended without an agreement, further deepening the divide. The failure of these peace processes can be attributed to many factors, such as the lack of agreement on key issues like borders, the status of Jerusalem, and the right of return for Palestinian refugees. Additionally, both sides have faced internal divisions and pressure from hardline factions, making compromises difficult. Despite the attempts at peace, the two sides remained locked in a cycle of violence and mistrust. Fast forward to the present day, and the situation remains as volatile as ever. Tensions have escalated, fueled by violent incidents and the ever-changing dynamics of international politics. The Israel-Palestine conflict, a long-standing dispute, is now as much about land and politics as it is about narratives and perceptions. Recent events have seen a shift in American public opinion toward the Palestinians. A new high of 31% of U.S. adults now express sympathy for the Palestinians, a change that can be largely attributed to the powerful reach of social media. Palestinians are using these platforms to share their experiences, offering a humanizing perspective that challenges the traditional narrative. High-profile celebrities lending their voices in support of Palestine have further amplified these stories, influencing public opinion. Yet, despite the changing narrative, the reality on the ground remains unchanged for Palestinians living under Israeli occupation. The staunch support for Israel among Republicans, fueled by Christian evangelicals, war on terror rhetoric, and Islamophobia, remains firm. Meanwhile, Israel is preparing to swear in its most right-wing government in history, a development that has raised concerns about potential escalations in violence and changes to the status of Jerusalem's holy sites. Jordan's King Abdullah II has already voiced his concerns, warning of red lines and hinting at potential conflict if these lines are crossed. The conflict is further complicated by the intersection of religious fundamentalism and political power. For instance, Christian fundamentalism in the U.S. has been identified as a contributing factor to the conflict, aligning itself with right-wing and authoritarian powers in the region. Today, the conflict is not only a political and territorial dispute, but also a battle of narratives and international public opinion. The Israel-Palestine conflict is a complex tapestry of history, politics, and human stories, and understanding it requires looking beyond the headlines to the narratives being woven every day. So, where does the future lie for Israel and Palestine? Let's take a moment to ponder this question as we delve into the potential implications for the future. The path forward is shrouded in uncertainty, with various possibilities lying ahead. One such possibility is the two-state solution, an idea that has been floated around for decades. This would entail the creation of an independent Palestinian state alongside Israel, with both nations coexisting in harmony. However, the feasibility of this solution is increasingly being called into question, due to the ongoing expansion of Israeli settlements and the fragmented nature of Palestinian territories. Alternatively, there's the one-state solution, where Israel and Palestine would become a single democratic state with equal rights for all citizens regardless of their ethnicity or religion. Yet this solution also has its challenges, as it would require a significant shift in political ideologies and a radical restructuring of the current societal norms. Then, of course, there's the grim prospect of continued conflict, a scenario that no one wishes to see, but is a stark reality that cannot be ignored. The peace processes of the past have been unsuccessful, and the tensions between the two sides seem to be escalating rather than subsiding. The role of the international community in shaping this future cannot be overstated. Global powers, particularly the United States, have significant influence over the course of events. The shifting public opinion in the U.S., particularly among Democrats, towards a more balanced view of the conflict could potentially impact future policies. However, the timeline for such changes remains uncertain. Furthermore, the use of social media platforms by Palestinians to share their experiences has been instrumental in garnering international sympathy and raising awareness about their plight. This shift in the narrative could potentially pressure the international community to take a more proactive role in resolving the conflict. The future of Israel and Palestine is a complex puzzle, with each piece representing a different stakeholder, a different perspective, and a different set of challenges. As we grapple with these complexities, we must never lose sight of the human cost of this conflict, the lives lost, and the families torn apart. As the sun sets on another day in the Holy Land, the question remains, will there ever be peace between Israel and Palestine? Only time will tell.